The Nizhny Novgorod puppeteer Moskvin. The name of the central figure in this tale has become shrouded in rumors and legends in Nizhny Novgorod, Russia. The story stirred up quite a commotion in the city and continues to be discussed and retold like a terrifying fairy tale. However, these events are all too real. The story begins when officers from the Center for Combating Extremism, part of the main directorate of the Ministry of Internal Affairs for the Nizhny Novgorod region, approached a well-known local scholar for consultation. This scholar, an expert in local history and ancient dead languages, taught at a university. The police sought his help due to a series of disturbing acts of vandalism at Nizhny Novgorod cemeteries. Someone had been desecrating graves and leaving strange symbols. But during their first visit, the police quickly realized that Anatoly, the scholar, would not just be a witness in this case but the main suspect. His apartment contained 26 human mummies. In a chilling echo of Hollywood horror films, Moskvin had dressed the bodies in ball gowns or wedding dresses and placed masks on their faces. Even more disturbingly, he spoke to these dolls as if they were alive. Moskvin had been assembling his gruesome collection over the past decade, retrieving the bodies from local cemeteries. He targeted graves of women and girls, carefully selecting them before digging up the bodies, which he then hid in specially prepared secret locations nearby. The bodies would mummify in these hiding spots for several weeks before Moskvin brought them to his home. Some of the bodies he mummified, while others were reburied or stored in a garage, according to some reports. Over the 10 years of his work, Moskvin desecrated more than 150 graves, not only in Nizhny Novgorod, but also in the Vladimir and Moscow regions. Moskvin's reasoning for his actions was surprisingly straightforward. He had always longed for a child but was unable to have his own, and he couldn't adopt. The criminal case against Anatoly Moskvin began in the Lenin District Court on May 15, 2012. Just days before the trial, Moskvin gave an interview where he explained his motives. "Why did you keep these corpses in your apartment?" "I didn't see them as corpses. To me they were bodies. You see, I practice black magic. My goal was to bring these children back to life. I felt sorry for them because they still had so much life left to live. I kept them so that when science eventually finds a cure for cancer, it could revive them. Genetics is advancing so rapidly nowadays. That was my only reason. I felt sorry for all those children." "Do you realize that you committed a crime and that you're now in prison?" "Yes, I knew from the start that what I was doing was illegal, but I felt so sorry for the children. Unfortunately, cloning is prohibited in our country, although it will be allowed someday, just as genetics was once banned. My goal was to preserve material for future cloning so these children could live again. I felt so sorry for them. Each time I dug something up, I carefully covered it back up so no one would notice, to avoid disturbing the relatives. I also communicated with the spirits of these children. I found a way to contact the other side, and I received information from them." "Weren't you concerned about the feelings of the deceased's relatives when you dug up the graves?" "The fact is, everything remained secret for 10 years. I knew that none of the relatives would ever find out. So, I was very careful in what I did. If you know the details, you'll understand that I wasn't caught at the cemetery. The police came to my house for a completely different matter and accidentally found the dolls. No one, not even my parents, knew what these dolls were made of. I'd been making them for 10 years. "Can you tell us how you did it? How you dug up the corpses?" "I didn't dig up corpses, I dug up bodies. I would go at night knowing exactly which grave to target. I'd check how deep the body was buried, make an undercut, pry up the boards with a chisel, take out the body, and then dry it with soda and salt. I called them vaccines. I practiced necromancy and communicated with the spirits of deceased children." "What exactly are you interested in?" "About the souls of the deceased children." Regarding the souls of the deceased children, I'm an expert in Celtic studies. While studying Celtic culture, I noticed that Druids communicated with the spirits of the dead by sleeping on their graves. Later, when I studied the culture of the ancient Yakuts in Siberia, I found similar practices. I became interested and began sleeping on the graves of children that I liked. The spirits of the deceased children started appearing to me. I'd been doing this for about 20 years, testing whether these were demons or spirits. I collected as much information as possible, verifying it whenever I could. I became convinced that the spirits of the deceased children were indeed coming to me. At first I slept on graves, but then I adapted by moving the bodies to places where I could sleep more comfortably. I built dryers, secret hideouts, and over time I needed more bodies for my experiments as the number of children increased. Spirits only appear in warm weather and you can't sleep on a grave in the cold. So I started drying them and bringing them home. This was done very carefully, one at a time, so no one knew. Before all this, I had studied the theory and technology of mummification from every book I could find. I even learned ancient Egyptian script for this purpose. I traveled to Moscow and other regions of Russia to study mummification techniques in different soils. Eventually I became so absorbed in this that I started focusing on notable individuals, and this led me to become a necropolist. For about 7 years I've considered myself a necropolist. A large series of my articles on the history of Nizhny Novgorod cemeteries was published in the newspaper Nizhny Novgorod Worker throughout 2008. Do you understand that what you did was illegal? Yes, I understood it was illegal. But back when the heroes of our science, Dubinin and Chetverikov, conducted experiments on fruit flies in their closets, they also knew it was illegal under Stalin's laws. At that time, genetics was banned. Now cloning is banned. You had 28 bodies. What were your plans for the future? They weren't bodies to me, they were remains. As for my future plans, I'm not entirely sure. After 10 years of studying white magic, I realized I had hit a dead end. I think I've also reached a dead end in black magic, as I haven't found any new information in the past 2 years. Honestly, I had some favorite children. I planned to keep my favorite children at home. The ones I liked less, I planned to move to the garage so they could stay there. If any child completely lost my favor, I would take them back to their original grave and rebury them. I didn't break or mutilate anything, didn't dismember any bodies. I treated them gently, kindly, politely, and I even avoided swearing in front of the children. It wasn't appropriate to swear in front of children. Moreover, all of them were girls. So I tried to maintain a certain level of respect. The fact is, I suffered greatly from loneliness, especially in the summer when my parents were away and took the cat with them, so I worked at the computer. I have a job as a journalist writing a lot, mostly on the computer. I would arrange the remains. I even drilled holes for their eyes. I would play them cartoons, children's songs, and I would sing to them myself. What songs? Just regular children's songs, the kind I would sing if I had a living daughter. After that we would eat, well, I would eat and I would offer them food, as is customary in Celtic or Yakut traditions. I believe that the culture of the ancient Celts and the medieval Yakuts are very similar. After that I would work on the computer talking to them. I have a habit of speaking my thoughts out loud when no one is around. I would say everything out loud. I have a huge collection of cartoons. I would play them cartoons and watch them myself when the work wasn't too demanding. I would ask them questions and answer them myself. For about 10 years I've been studying child psychology, preparing myself to raise a child. I also have experience with living children through tutoring. Whatever I would do with living children, I would do with them. After the trial, Anatoly Moskvin started undergoing treatment in a psychiatric clinic where he is still held nowadays. What's interesting, colleagues described the defendant as a kind, brilliant, and punctual specialist researcher, attributing his oddities to the eccentricities of an intellectual. However, the fact remains that genius often walks a fine line with madness.